Traveling the Vortex.
We're traveling the Vortex with the Fugitive Doctor and have landed inside the Carrionite Crystal Ball. In this Circuit Breaker review, we look at the short story, The Doctor and the Three Witches, from the recently re-released Time Lord Fairy Tales. This anthology was originally released in 2015 and again in 2016 with a slipcase edition. In the 2026 edition, the Circuit Breaker story was added. Here's a summary of that story written by Janelle McCurdy, and as per usual, there will be spoilers in this review. The Fugitive Doctor is thrown into a strange, story-bound reality after a weeping angel touches her, depositing her inside a medieval village that feels wrong from the moment she wakes. She rises against the dirty ground, disoriented, unaware she is being watched by Lilith, a Carrionite witch who has waited centuries for the Doctor's return. Lilith freezes the Doctor using a straw doll wrapped with a lock of her hair and forces her to relive twisted visions of her future. She shows the Doctor corrupted fairy tale versions of her own timeline, insisting that she's the bringer of chaos and responsible for the Carrionite's imprisonment. These visions shake the Doctor's confidence, feeding her fear that she may truly be dangerous. Martha Jones arrives unexpectedly, transported by Unit's Indigo Device, and rescues the Doctor from Lilith's spell. Martha explains that they are inside the very crystal ball where the 10th Doctor and Martha once trapped the Carrionites. Over the centuries, the witches have used their word magic to build an entire world of warped fairy tales. Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, Jack and the Beanstalk, interwoven with monsters from the Doctor's past. The Doctor and Martha flee through the shifting landscape, pursued by a towering wolf who calls them Little Reds, a Naimon emerging from a black portal, and other manifestations triggered by an ominous gong echoing through the forest. The Doctor realizes that Carrionites have fused her adventures with ancient folklore, creating a narrative prison where the story logic dictates reality. Inside a gingerbread house, the Doctor nearly gives into a dark impulse, reenacting Hansel and Gretel by burning the witches alive. Martha challenges her, insisting the Doctor she knows would never choose cruelty. This moment becomes a turning point. The Doctor remembers the hope she still carries. She would not be a soldier or a killer, and rejects the violent path. Instead, she uses the rules of the fairy tales against the Carrionites. She recalls that water can weaken witches, as it does in The Wizard of Oz, and together they exploit the exaggerated physics of the story world to melt Lilith, Doomfinger, and Bloodtide. With the antagonists defeated, the Doctor and Martha speak the final words, "The End," collapsing the fabricated realm and returning them to the Black Archive. But the victory is incomplete. The Carrionites remain trapped. Yet, Lilith's final warning haunts the Doctor, that she will be the cause of every destruction of every Doctor after her. Martha reassures her her future is not predetermined, reminding her that she can still achieve the impossible. The closing scene reveals the true architect of the fairy tale prison, a hooded figure known as the Conductor. He collects strands of the Doctor's hair from the witches and promises the Carrionites freedom once the Doctor is destroyed. Once again, his presence hints at a larger, looming threat, one that is finally beginning to reveal itself. The Doctor and the Three Witches picks up immediately after the events of Don't Blink, and I really appreciate how seamlessly it continues the momentum of the Circuit Breaker arc. There's no downtime here, the Doctor's thrown straight into peril, and the story wastes no time establishing its stakes. One of the first surprises is the return of Project Indigo, now referred to as the Indigo Device. Martha's offhand remark that it has, quote, come a long way since the TV episode Stolen Earth is a great little callback, and it's exactly the kind of continuity touch that makes this whole event feel connected across eras of Doctor Who. Structurally, the story gives equal weight to both the Doctor and Martha, which I loved. Martha saves the Doctor right out of the gate, breaking Lilith's spell and grounding the Doctor in the moment. Later, the Doctor returns the favor, pulling both of them out of danger as the fairy tale world collapses around them. It's a balanced dynamic that feels respectful of Martha's history and competence, and it's refreshing to see her treated as a full partner rather than a side note. The emotional core of the story comes from the Doctor's moment of crisis. When she suggests burning the Carrionites in an oven, marrying Hansel and Gretel, Martha immediately challenges her. And that challenge matters. It's not just moral guidance, it's a reminder of who the Doctor is supposed to be. Hearing the Doctor reconsider and ultimately reject that violent path feels like a genuine shift in her trajectory. It's a moment where she steps closer to the person her future selves will become, and it's handled with just the right amount of weight. The Carrionites themselves are used effectively, but the real intrigue comes from the reveal of the Conductor, the true architect behind the Doctor's capture. His involvement retroactively reframes the previous story, especially the release of the Weeping Angel. I suspected the mysterious figure who's been popping up in these stories was pulling the strings there, and the story confirms it. The Conductor's presence adds a larger, looming threat to the Circuit Breaker arc, and I'm curious to see how far his influence reaches. Overall, The Doctor and the Three Witches is a simple, tightly focused narrative, but it delivers a meaningful character beat for the Doctor and a satisfying showcase for Martha. It's a fun, imaginative detour through twisted fairy tales, and it leaves the arc with a clear direction forward. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. So, have you read this one yet? Be sure to tell us what you thought in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Next up, another Lost in Time event story. Until then, I'm Glenn. Cheers.